years ago, I was 17, finishing up high school. There was this girl, Rose. We had a casual thing, lasted maybe 2-3 months. We'd hang out, hook up. Nothing serious. Then it just ended. No drama, no goodbye. Even though we still walked the same halls, it was radio silence. I didn't think much of it. Girls came and went all the time back then. And soon after, my family moved. I didn't see Rose again, didn't talk to her. Fast forward, about a year ago, I'm hiring a new web designer for my company. Got a handful of applicants, one of them, Aaron. We went to high school together. Back then, he was all long hair, Hot Topic shirts, baked guitar, weed in his mum's basement, but now he shows up with a sensible haircut, sweater vest, great portfolio, glowing recommendations, takes the salary I offer, no negotiation. Slam dunk hire. A few months go by, our communication, professional. I oversee hiring, but I don't micromanage. And Aaron's work? Solid, no reason to interfere. And it's time for our semi-annual Rally the Troops moment. I invite everyone to this hipster taco spot, cover the food, give a little speech, tell them how great they all are, hand out $50 gift cards, little notes about how their work is appreciated, typical stuff. The kind of thing anyone who's ever had a job has probably sat through, but beneath the surface, sometimes there's more. Most of the team left after dinner. We stayed back. The drinks had done their job, and the conversation started to flow. We talked about high school. We weren't really friends back then, more like neutral acquaintances. Different circles, different interests, different lives. Aaron told me what really set him on the path he's on now. He got Rose pregnant, senior year, and I'll be honest, I'd almost forgotten Rose existed. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly a decade. I had been married for 4 of those years. I knew Aaron had a kid, coincidentally, the same first name as mine, but I didn't know much about his wife, just that they were married, and both were Doctor Who enthusiasts. He went on, said his marriage was awful. The only reason he stayed was for his son. His cubicle was covered in little certificates, photos, drawings, moments, the kind of things people keep around to remind themselves why they keep going. He showed me pictures of his son, and I swear, the kid looked like a clone of me. 8 or 9 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes. My fates. Aaron's short, stocky, red-haired. Rose's Chickasaw, cool blood. And this boy didn't inherit any of that. I didn't say anything. I don't think Aaron knows I ever hooked up with Rose, and I have no desire to break that news to him. A few days later, Rose added me on Facebook. Since then, once a month, she messages me. Tells me things about her son. Not only does he look like me, he acts like me. Same interests, same mannerisms. He's a wrestler. Already has a girlfriend. Even though he's not old enough to know what to do with her. I don't think Aaron knows Rose is talking to me. And if I'm being honest, I haven't told my wife. It's been a heavy thing. The quiet grief that never really goes away. And if it turns out I have a kid with someone else, she wouldn't take it well. I don't want to play daddy to a boy I didn't know existed until a year ago. But I keep circling 2 concerns. First, if he is my kid, it's pretty messed up for Rose to be using Aaron. Not really my business, but still. I don't want to stand by and watch her defraud him, but I don't know what the alternative is. Second, if he is my kid, he deserves some family medical history. You're asked for it on every health form you ever fill out. But I also don't want to know. Because if it is my kid, I don't want Rose coming after me for child support. And I don't want this to blow back and strain my marriage. So I'm stuck. I might wait until the kid turns 18, reach out to him on my own. This isn't really a confession. It's more of a sneaky suspicion. But being here alone, with no one to bounce this off of, it leaves me wondering, what's the best course of action? If anyone out there has any solid ideas, just know I'm all ears. When I was 18, I got my first job. A video retail store. One I won't name, but it was probably my favorite job I've ever had. Back in 2001, I stole my first DVD. It was From Hell Johnny Depp. Side note, terrible movie. I took it into the employee bathroom, sliced it open with a razor, removed the security tag. Those black and white strips inside the case, they trigger alarms if they're not deactivated. I stuffed the DVD in my pants, asked to go buy a drink. But really, I went to my car. Why did I do it? I wanted to see the movie. It looked interesting in the previews, and I didn't have the money to buy it. My parents, they made me deposit my entire paycheck into a savings account. No spending money. None. I didn't feel any thrill from stealing. I just wanted to see the movie. No thought as right or wrong entered my head. I knew it was illegal, but I didn't care. And over the next few years, it evolved. I got friends involved. Mondays with a he, just me and the general manager. 3:30 p.m, he'd go on a conference call in the back room. Mandatory, 1 hour. During that time, I'd call my friends. They'd come in, collect all the DVDs they wanted, bring them to the counter. I'd deactivate them. In exchange, they'd grab DVDs I wanted. I'd do a fake transaction, swipe a fake card, smile at the customers, then they'd leave and I'd retrieve my bag later. This went on for 2 years. I built a collection of over 1,000 DVDs. No one questioned the blue-collar folks buying hundreds of dollars worth of movies every Monday. And at no point did I feel remorse. Not once. I ripped off that company by the thousands, and I didn't blink. You're probably wondering if my parents ever noticed. To be honest, I'm not sure. At first I kept the collection well hidden, but eventually I stopped caring. They never said a word, not once. At the store I worked in, you could reserve DVDs before they were released. There was this one customer, I'll call him Cornelius. Some rich guy, came in often, ordered by the dozen, paid in full. He liked me, said we had similar taste in films, and I liked hearing about his business exploits. He's a high-ranking problem solver for some global corporation, always reserved his films when I was at the register. And that helped me. Employee had quotas. Every pay period, Cornelius kept mine full. One day, he came to pick up his reserves, and I noticed something. I'd accidentally overcharged him $22.99 instead of $19.99. Reserve tickets work like coupons. Usually, if the coupon went over the price, the register would just emit the change. That's what I expected. But this time, it was different. Because Cornelia had prepaid. Prepaid, that was the key. He was entitled to the change. New options appeared, cash or credit. I hit cash. The drawer opened. I handed him the munchie, and that's when the wheel started turning. I realized it might be possible to remove cash from the register without triggering a shortage on the end of night report. But first, I needed to learn what the manager actually did at closing. So for a few weeks, I watched closely what reports were printed, what was accounted for. What I noticed was alarming, but helpful. My general manager only checked the cash total, didn't count the credit card totals, didn't verify the reservation certificates, just glanced at them, signed off, rubber banded all the reports together, wrote the date, and tossed them into a plastic bin, carelessly. And that was the beginning of something else entirely. Every 90 days. Gone. And that helped my cause even more. Kept it all to myself, told no one. In fact, as I'm saying this now, this is the first time I've ever disclosed it. It started small. Fake reservation tickets, usually for $49.99, redeemed against a fake $29.99 DVD. Easy $20. There was no real way to inventory reservations. You could redeem them at any store in the country. Just like the DVD scam I still had going. But it evolved. From $20 tricks to $120 scam every shift. Sometimes twice in a row. The 120 scam we're so called. Redeem a fake $120 reserve on a $1 bottle of soda. That's it. At the end of the night, I'd glance at the paperwork, see those outrageous totals in the reserves. But the managers? They never checked. Signed off blindly. Mostly because the closing manager lived far away. He just wanted to get out of there. And so the scam ran strong. For a year and a half, I was making $600 to $700 a week. That's nearly 34 grand a year. On top of the $6.50 an hour I was officially earning. You're probably wondering, how did no one see me pocket all that cash? Someone had to. But I only did it when the store was empty, which was often back in 2003, 2004. And honestly, my GM wasn't an intelligent man. Nice guy, just no common sense. Me? I was observant, calculating. You're probably assuming corporate had copies of those reports, all those outrageous totals. But if they did, they never said a word. And so the bin filled and emptied and filled again, and I kept going. The company that owned the retail stores changed hands 3 times in a year and a half. Even when things settled under new ownership, I stayed undetected. But it wasn't cleverness that led to my downfall. It was a stupid mistake. One I'll get to, but first, I want to explain the safety plan I devised. I'm a neurotic overthinker. I do this with everything. There's a problem, but sometimes it's useful, especially when you're running a scam. There were moments I wanted to stop. I knew I'd be found out eventually, just not quickly. But the money was too good. I was an underachiever in my youth, so I started to build a contingency plan, just in case. About a year before I was caught, I was interviewed by the company's loss prevention detective. It was about something completely unrelated, but I watched him closely, saw how he conducted his interrogation, and I knew he wasn't looking for me. Still, I researched how interrogators work, how they get people to crack. One of the most common tactics, the loaded question. Let me explain. A loaded question contains an unjustified assumption, usually a presumption of guilt. It's a logical fallacy, a rhetorical trap. The question limits your replies to ones that serve the interrogator's agenda. Take this example. Have you stopped beating your wife? It presupposes you've beaten your wife and that you have one. If you're unmarried or never laid a hand, the question is loaded. And since it's yes or no, you're stuck. Yes means you used to be here. No means you still do. The proper answer? I've never beaten my wife, but most people, they fall for it. And once they do, the questions keep coming until they crack. I was determined not to let this happen to me. Another thing, we didn't have personal codes at the register. It was open. Anyone could ring anything, so you couldn't track who did what. I knew once I was found out, it'd be easy to connect the dots, but it would still be circumstantial. Unless I confessed. So, without any further ado, let me explain how it all came to an end. October 19th, 2004, I made a grave mistake. I needed extra cash. Wanted to go on a trip to Minnesota with a few friends. It was unusually busy. 3 big releases that week, if I remember right, and I was struggling to run the cash scan. Too many customers, just me and the general manager on the floor. I didn't mention this before, but the scam takes at least a minute. Fill out a reserve ticket, run the register, and our registers, old, late 1980s DOS-based computers. Slow, so slow. Sometimes I'd run the scam and retrieve the cash later if things were hectic, but that day was chaos. I ran the scam, but couldn't remember if I'd taken the cash. I already had a lot of money in my pocket. In retrospect, I should have taken it anyway, because a $120 overage is way more suspicious than a shortage. Just think about it. But I left it. End of the night, the drawer was $120 ochre. My general manager was freaking out, but to my surprise, he didn't check the report. Didn't troubleshoot, just signed off. Figured he'd get yelled at, and it would blow over. I was relieved. grateful for his ignorance. I had the next day off, but worked the day after with him again. Asked if he got in trouble, he said no, and it wasn't a suspicious no. So I carried on. Still needed that cash for Minnesota. Ran the scam again, no hitch, and I figured everything would be chill. This would not prove to be the case. At the end of the night, I noticed my general manager was staring at the register take, the one that records every single transaction. He stopped abruptly, highlighted one, and yeah, I freaked out. But I stayed calm, kept working. He didn't say anything out of the ordinary, but I noticed he checked the reservation redeemed, put a big question mark around it. I'd requested the next few days off about a month earlier, so it wasn't suspicious. I didn't tell them where I was going, just said I had a school project. But really, I was heading to Minnesota. Fishing trip. 3 days passed, I came back to work, and oh man, things were different. Instantly. This part-time employee looked terrified at the register. I asked her what was wrong. She said a loss prevention detective was in the store. Wanted to interview every employee. I played it cool, but I knew this was the day I'd been mentally preparing for. I clocked in, started my routine. Then the general manager comes out of his office, pulls me aside, says I need to talk to the LP detective. I ask what it's about. He just says the guy wants to talk to everyone. But I knew I was the main event. They shoved me into the back room. This guy wearing a Cliff Huxtable sweater smiles, introduces himself, politely asks me to take a seat. His opening line goes something like, "Hey there, man, I forget his name. I work for the loss prevention department. I'm here today conducting an investigation. Just need some basic information." He asks for my full name, date of birth, how long I've worked there. I answer truthfully. Then he asks my personal definition of theft. I say, taking something that doesn't belong to you. And while I'm talking, I'm looking around the room. Old reports sprawled across the desk, highlighted my transactions, my scam, right there in black and white. There were old employee schedules spread across the desk, trying to link me. I knew what he was doing. He knew it was me. He just needed me to say so. Otherwise, he didn't have a case. Gotta love that word, circumstantial. So I decided to play the game right back. Interrogators, they ask personal questions, try to soften you up, get you talking, then they twist it, turn it negative, make you doubt yourself. He asked me, "So, what did you aspire to be when you were younger?" If I'd answered honestly, I wanted to be a filmmaker, he'd probably say, "Looks like you didn't cut it," or, "Hey, you need a lot of money to make a film." Instead, I chose a different route, one meant to aggravate him. I answered his questions with more questions. "Detective, what did you aspire to be?" "Me, how long have you worked for this company?" "Detective, have you ever stolen anything?" "Me, have you ever given anything away?" "Detective, do you ever get angry?" "Me, have you ever been happy?" He started to get irritated, accused me of not being cooperative. I apologized for making him mad, which only made him madder. Then came the loaded question. He said it outright. "Hey, I'm going to ask you a loaded question. Do you know what that is?" I lied, said I didn't. "Well," he said, "it's just like a normal question, but it's one I already know the answer to. Have you committed any form of theft this week?" Now here's the thing. All the evidence he had against me, empirical, circumstantial. No one had seen me do it. He could connect the dots, see the same dollar amounts taken on days I worked. It pointed to me, sure, but it was still just conjecture. I was quiet, kept to myself. Never told anyone, not even my best friend. Most people who steal money, they gloat, talk about what they bought. Me? I stayed silent, and that silence was my shield. I knew that wasn't a smart move, so I said nothing. The general manager and the assistant manager, they were both in financial turmoil, and I knew I could pawn the investigation onto them. So when the detective asked, I told him yes. Yes, I had committed theft that week. He looked surprised. Genuinely, and he asked, "Could you describe what you did?" I told him I stole 3 DVDs, said I knew a secret shopper had spotted me and that I'd felt guilty ever since. His demeanor shifted. Confusion, horrific confusion. He started tripping over his words. "Oh, okay. Then he asked, "Was that your first time?" I said yes. Told him they'd cut our hours, which was true, and I had to cut corners on my own budget. It was obvious he didn't care about the DVDs. He wanted to circle back to the cash scam. "Thank you for your honesty," he said. "Now, have you done any other types of theft?" I asked him what he meant. He said, "Did you ever maybe take any money out of the drawer?" Notice here, I steered him so far off course, he forgot about the loaded questions. I told him never. Said it was impossible, wouldn't the drawer be short? And then he made the dumbest move. He explained my own scam to me. I just pretended not to understand. He tried to stroke an ego I didn't have. "You think about it," he said. "This scam is kind of ingenious." I kept saying I didn't get it, so he explained it 3 times. And that's when I asked, "Witness have shown up on a report?" His face went hard, a scowl. He said maybe someone wasn't doing their job correctly. And he tried to scare me. Started talking about hidden cameras, size of a pinhead. Before he could finish, I asked, "Do you have me on video doing this?" And he said, "Are you sure you want me to answer that?" Dumbest thing you could have said. For brains. You might as well have just said no. So I answered, sarcastically, "Yeah, I want to see something impossible." He gave me another scowl. This guy, he was losing the battle. Then he knew it. Eventually, he called the police, said he was reporting a theft, told me not to leave, then walked out. He came back in, then out again, trying to get me to confess to the money scam, but I stayed quiet, tight-lipped. Eventually, the police showed up. That's where the merchandise was. They thought it was this big box of DVDs on the ground. We'd just gotten a new shipment, hadn't even put it out yet. When the LP detective told them it wasn't that, the cops just stood there, confused. He hadn't even had me write anything down, no signature, no statement. Sure, I'd confess to him, but that's not something he could prove. After a bit of back and forth, the cops told him they couldn't arrest me without evidence. He said, "But he confessed." And I denied it. Flat out told them he was just trying to close an open case. Eventually, the cops told him they weren't arresting me, and they even criticized him for how he handled it. Now, thoroughly defeated, he looked at me, said, "Leave the store, and don't come back." I looked at him, smiled. The why? I didn't do anything wrong. His face turned bright red. I stood up, walked out, and I never went back. Months later, I heard he got fired. Not because of me. Apparently, he botched another interrogation at a different store. I ran my scheme for over a year. By the time it was all over, I'd netted about 30 grand off the books. I'd love to say there's a moral here, a lesson, but there isn't. Not when you walk away scot-free with a severance package you wrote yourself. Looking back, I think what saved me was the chaos. The company being bought and sold so many times. If that hadn't happened, maybe I'd be telling a different story. One with a courtroom, a sentence, a record. But that's not how it played out, not for this version of me. And for that, I'm thankful. This is going to be hard to say, but here it goes. I need to confess something that's weighed on me for years. I spent a portion of my life working as a certified nursing assistant, a CNA, in a Texas-based nursing home. And the memories of that time, they still tear me apart. The job was brutal. We were always understaffed. The work overwhelming, emotionally draining. The facility was often staffed well below federal minimums for CNAs, which meant I was alone, caring for 24 residents in my hall. Some days, best I could do was keep people clean and dry, changing adult briefs as fast as I could. I heard other CNAs admit they'd tell residents to just use their briefs because they couldn't keep up. I never did that, but knowing others did makes me sick. Showers once a week if they were lucky, and the Texas heat, it only made things worse. Sweltering, unbearable, especially when the AC was failing. Room temperatures pushing past 90 degrees. One of the worst parts was the meal situation. Dinner trays had to be passed out and collected within an hour because the kitchen staff wanted to close up by 6. At the time, no fewer than 5 of my residents required hand feeding, but there was never enough time to do it right. Day after day, I faced the same gut-wrenching choice: feed 1 or 2 a full meal and let the others go hungry, or give each a couple of bites and pretend it was enough. I'd go home crying at night, knowing I'd participated in the neglect of the elderly, not out of cruelty, but out of exhaustion. Out of a system that never gave us enough time. Feed 1 or 2 a cool meal and let the others go hungry, or give each a couple of bites and pretend it was enough. I'd go home crying at night, knowing I'd participated in the neglect of the elderly, not out of cruelty, but out of exhaustion, out of a system that never gave us enough time. One double shift was especially hard. I was tending to a resident with a do not resuscitate order. I thought she was nearing the end, but that day she was more talkative. Asked for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, so I got it for her. She was having a good day, in spite of the heat. I checked on her often, talked to her, held her hand, gave her cold washcloths, anything to make her comfortable. And then I found her gone. She had passed quietly, alone, in her room. At our nursing home, protocol was for 2 or 3 CNAs to prepare the body for the family. Clean pajamas, fresh bedding, combed hair, washed face, arranged with dignity. I always found that task a meaningful final act of care, but that day, the 2 CNAs assigned to help me were awful. They goofed off, laughed, made crude jokes about her body, complained about the waste of time, chatted about their personal lives. I was furious. This was my resident, someone I'd cared for like family. I screamed at them to get out, shut the door, and I prepared her alone, something I wasn't supposed to do. It took hours to clean her, dress her, change her bedding, comb her hair. Despite the heat, I made sure she looked dignified. Hands placed gently by her sides, it felt like the last kindness I could offer. Then I learned her family wasn't coming, and that crushed me. The funeral home was delayed, and because of the heat, I was told to lower the room's temperature, place bags of ice around her body. That moment stays with me. Quiet, heavy, still. She passed about 12 hours into my double shift, and it was several hours beyond my scheduled time when they finally arrived. I was exhausted, but I was determined to treat her with respect. While I was with her, my other residents were neglected. Several needed their briefs changed, some hadn't been fed. A few weeks later, I couldn't hold it in anymore. During another chaotic shift, I asked the charge nurse, "What do you do when you can't feed everyone? Do you give 5 people 2 bites each? Or help 1 or 2 eat a full meal while the rest get nothing?" Her eyes dropped, and she admitted she'd made the same awful choices. That was it for me. I quit, on the spot. I couldn't stomach another day of compromising my morals. The guilt stays with me. I failed those residents by not doing more, by staying in a broken system as long as I did. I was an active participant in the abuse of precious human lives. I should have fought harder, reported the neglect, left sooner. I carry so much shame for staying on as long as I did. I should have been held accountable for letting people go hungry. Even years later, I can't shake this guilt. I'm in a completely different field now. But I wonder, how many CNAs are still stuck in that same broken system, forced to make choices no one should ever face? Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, of elderly people, silent victims of that very same system. This is my confession. I thought sharing it would make me feel better, but it doesn't. I'll always carry the shame of those impossible choices. and the residents I didn't fully care for. If you've been a DNA, you might know this pain too. The system is broken, and it breaks us, along with it.